Welcome friends to another r/AskReddit video. While we'll get into a bunch of answers today, the one question I want to ask you is, could you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our big question of the day is by Ascendancy. People who live rurally, what's the scariest experience you've had that you can't explain? And our first answer of the day is by Better Call Tim. I was camping alone in the middle of the plains in North Dakota. A storm blew in, and I was stuck in my tent under some trees and got a super strange feeling. I had two phones on me at the time. One had internet and was for navigating, and the other was just for cell reception. In 2013, all of a sudden, one of the phones started ringing, and I looked at the caller ID. The call was coming from my other phone, which was closed and in my hand. Let me ask you guys, let alone the fact that OP's phones were calling themselves, would you be brave enough to go camping alone at night, or would that just be too much for you? Let me know if you'd brave it out in the wilderness at night in the comments down below. Our next answer is by Pinus Tata. 15 years ago, I had a seasonal job with the U.S. Forest Service in western Colorado for the summer. I was living in an old ranger station by myself. One night, I had a dream that someone was walking around the cabin while I was in bed. When I woke up that morning, the front door was wide open. For the rest of the summer, I slept with a large knife close by. Now that would freak me out. That's the kind of thing that even years down the road, I would lie wide awake in bed and be like, was it a person? Did I just not shut the door all the way? Was there wildlife that was walking around maybe? That would seriously eat away at me a little bit, I think. Our next answer is by Ing Fryer. My mother lives alone pretty much in the woods, completely dark at night. No street lights or lights from neighbors, only a small road leading up to the house. One time, in the middle of the night, she woke up to clear footsteps on the gravel. You know the sound. And 3 knocks on the front door. She called out, "Hello?" and looked outside and nothing's there, only silence. It might not be a spectacular story, but I would freak out if it was me waking up to that in the middle of the night with no other people around. This is just another one of those really thought-provoking, could it have been wildlife? Could it have been a bear walking around that happened to touch the door, you know? Was it a druggie or something that was just roaming around in the woods late at night? It's kind of freaky to think about. And speaking of freaky, a really good response to this answer was posted by Pudgy Dog DS. My grandmother, mother, and my aunts would have told you it was death knocking at the door. This is a third-hand story about the death of my grandfather. He was in the VA hospital. Severe diabetes from alcohol, both legs amputated above the knees. He was in his 70s. My youngest 2 aunts were home alone, and my grandmother had gone to the hospital to visit Grandpa. The house had side lights on both sides of the front door, and the stairs looked down to that area. My aunts upstairs heard 3 knocks at the front door, but when they looked down, they couldn't see anyone. The knocking happened several more times, always 3 knocks, until one of them finally opened the front door to see if they were being pranked. After that, the knocking stopped. When my grandmother returned home, they told her what happened, and she was livid. She went back to the hospital about a 2-hour drive in the day, only to find out that Grandpa had passed after she had left. Apparently, Grandpa had haunted that house afterwards, but the family did not believe the knocking was a spirit looking to be let in. My mother told me several times that if there were knocks at the door and no one was there, to not open it until someone came in through that door. I feel like I've heard a number of experiences kind of similar to this. A really interesting one I know personally is a relative of mine had a child that passed away. The night after it happened, they were laying in bed and the TV out in the living room turned on. It apparently went staticky or sounded staticky. It was in the 90s. They didn't dare go out and look at it. It was just probably too spooky. And then apparently by the morning, the TV had stopped working and never worked again. There's just some weird occurrences that make you want to think some stuff sometimes. Our next answer is by Loveboat Captain. I grew up on a small property in regional Australia. We lived about 3 to 4 kilometers out of town, so not super far, but also far enough that we never really get disturbed. On top of that, we were on a dead-end street, down the end of another street off of the main road. so not once have I ever seen a pedestrian near my house. Anyway, one night when I was about 12, I was watching TV when two of my brothers came downstairs and said, "Did you hear that?" I was pretty glued to the TV, so I didn't hear a thing, but apparently they heard footsteps outside and a couple of hushed voices. Seeing as how my brothers were both around 20 and both big rugby playing dudes, their plan was for me to wait inside while they ran outside and tackled anybody they could find before calling the cops. So, they both sprinted out the front door at the same time, splitting in different directions to wrap around the house and meet again on the other side. Presumably each with a criminal wrapped in a headlock under their arm. If you've ever seen that movie Signs where Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix run around the house, basically just picture that. Anyway, they never found them. Swear to this day that they heard voices, but nobody was ever seen. Our property has a lot of thick bushland right up to the house, so all we can think is that when my brothers came out, these guys just dissolved back into the bush and watched, then probably just took off once the coast was clear again. The whole thing scared the heck out of me. I don't blame OP for being scared, even with big, strong, rugby-playing brothers there. The thought of being home late at night and people are circling your house and hearing voices, it's pretty terrifying. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this late at night and I kind of regret getting to this so late. Next time I decide to do something spooky like this, I'm gonna do it at like 1 p.m. with the sunlight shining directly into my eyeballs. The next answer I'll regret reading late at night is by Who Is Wilds. I live alone in the woods 15 minutes from my town. My neighbors are near, but not right next door. One summer morning, I woke around 4:30 a.m. to a strange pounding sound. It was still kind of dusky dawn lighting and I was in a daze from just waking up. Then I started to hear a man's voice yelling, "Somebody help me!" I began to look out my windows to see if I could see anyone, but couldn't from upstairs. My home has no window coverings on any of the windows. I went downstairs and caught a glimpse of him, naked with a thin t-shirt on, running around my house trying to jiggle windows and doors. He was very erratic, kept screaming for someone to help him, and kept running from door to window all around trying to find a way in. In any normal situation, I would gladly help someone in need, but this situation felt too unpredictable and dangerous for me to allow this person into my home. I was able to contact my neighbors, who got my message and quickly made their way over to help me. This is faster than any police that can get here. The guy ran away straight into the trees before they arrived. He was picked up by the RCMP shortly after. No idea what happened there. Yeah, I'm gonna assume in that case, it was probably some kind of happy dust gone wrong or something like that. Some bathing salts or something like that. I feel like in that situation, maybe it's better not to know. Just be happy that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police got them and they're gone. Our next answer is by Hammock District on 5th. Unfortunately, it's hard to explain. I was hiking down a trail with my dog in remote northern Wisconsin when I just got a weird feeling. At the exact same time, the hackles on my dog went straight up and he began acting really anxious. About the same time, I came into a clearing in the woods and got hit with what I can only describe as a sound wave. It was like someone was blasting a subwoofer right next to me, but there was nothing around. The nearest road was maybe a mile away. Something told me to get the freak out of there, so I quickly turned around and hiked as quickly as possible the rest of the way back. I didn't hear that bass sound after I left the clearing, but I still felt like something was following me. Having read and saw ridiculous videos and things, I don't actually think they're real by the way, but it reminds me of like the siren head meme that was going around for a while. I remember reading siren head things that were portrayed as if it was a real thing, and the stuff I was reading was describing these different siren head creatures that live in different areas. Siren heads being, for those who don't know, creatures with literal heads that are like megaphone sirens, and they just wail sounds and bass frequencies and stuff. It's such an absurd thing, but it kind of reminded me of that. Our next answer is by SlightAd1744. I walked about a mile from home to go mushroom hunting in a usual area. walked through a field of goldenrod as high as my shoulders, and was about to enter the woods when I felt something strange. I felt like I needed to go or I wouldn't get out of there alive. I didn't hear or see anything, but I had got goosebumps and I felt anxious when everything was fine before I reached that spot. I stood there debating and decided to go hunt somewhere else. I've gone back many times and haven't experienced that again. I live in an area that has bears, wolves, coyotes, and bobcats. I've never had any problems with them on walks or hikes in the woods, but maybe that day would have been different. Or maybe there was a bad person in there. I've learned to trust this feeling I get. It saved me many times, and when I ignored it, I got hurt. Whatever was in there, I did the right thing in not going in. Am I alone in thinking that I feel like I've experienced moments like this? For some reason, it feels like there's some kind of sixth sense where you can tell something is watching you or something's looking at you, whether that be another person in the room and you just glance over and somehow make eye contact with them, or maybe it is a wild animal in the woods. Would you agree that sometimes you just get that sense? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. And our final spooky answer of the day is by Interesting Ice 9995. I grew up on a ranch in a small old California ranch house. Lots of windows to stay cool in the summer. Almost all the rooms open to the central living room. I was probably 14. My brother was 11, and my mom was out that night running an errand. Brother and I are together in the living room. He's sitting by the stove and I'm lying on the sofa. We're doing homework. Inside, the lights are on, but through the windows it's pitch black. As I'm reading, I hear footsteps on the mud porch leading up to the front door. It's an old house, and I hear the heavy footsteps clearly, but I hadn't seen my mom's car drive in. I hadn't seen or heard any car. It's the country. I would have heard a car approaching and seen their headlights through the dark windows, but there was nothing, just the footsteps on the porch. They stop at the front door, but no one knocks. I am frozen. If I had gotten up and looked around the corner through the kitchen, I would have seen the owner of the footsteps standing at the door, which had a window, but then they would have seen me. If I talk to my brother, they'll hear me, and in the dark, anyone could be looking through the windows at us, but we couldn't see out. I go through all my options. The person is standing at the only door in or out of the house, which is always unlocked. If I go to the kitchen to grab a knife, they'll see me and know I see them. We can't hide. The house is too small and they'll see where we go. My heart is racing. My best option is to pretend I don't know for as long as I can and be ready for whatever comes next. But after a few minutes, I don't hear any more footsteps. I calm down. I might have just imagined it. 20 minutes later, I hear my mom's car and see headlights go across the windows. I run outside because I'm still a child and I want my mother to know how scared I am. But before I can tell her, she asks me, "Who left the water on?" And I'm terrified again. We had this weird water spigot in the front yard with a pole that shot up to about waist height and a spigot turned up instead of down. My brother and I would treat it like a drinking fountain or turn it on full blast and play under it like a fountain. When she got home, the water was on full blast, shooting several feet up into the air. Someone had been there that night on our porch. They saw my brother and I alone, no car in the drive. They didn't come in, but they wanted us to know they could have. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've officially made a mess in my pants. Going into this, I thought it might have been a fun Ask Reddit question. Little did I know I would be getting the chills reading these answers, overthinking the fact that I'm recording this late at night, not a single peep going on outside my house or around my house. The only question I have left tonight is how I'm gonna get some rest comfortably. Should I put something on the TV to distract me, or should I be able to hear what's going on outside? I've got some serious decisions to make, but with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So, of all these answers that I read today, which was your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.